One of the most interesting things I learned when I first started reading and writing and doing videos about this black violence and criminality wildly out of proportion came from one of our viewers and readers, and she told me, she said, Colin, they're trying to gaslight us. So what the hell is that? She said, well, it's from a movie. The movie's called Gaslighting. They made it in the 40s where they had this woman, I think it was Ingrid Bergman. They her husband surrounded her with a bunch of people, all of whom were going to try to convince her she was crazy. So she'd come in one day and the painting would be moved, or this would be out of place, or this would be missing, or this would be added, all to her house. And everybody would look at her and say, no, that's always been like that. Well, every day we're seeing gaslighting now whenever we talk about this black criminality and violence directed at old people, young people, white people, gay people, Asian people, straight people, kitties, puppies, turtles, goldfish, and lots of other people. I mean, we saw a great example of it earlier this summer when I guess he's funny. He must be funny because they said on the show, The View, that he was funny. His name's D.L. Hughley. He got on there and explained to us what all this stuff Colin is talking about, what it's really all about. It's just my imagination.
The most dangerous place for black people to live is in white people's imagination. When you look at the fact, honestly, you can have just shot up 17 people, and the police will arrest you. They know you have a gun, but they'll shoot the kid they thought had one. They'll shoot him in the back. And here's the thing, it's just, we live in America right now where we've evolved. We believe that a man can be a woman trapped in a woman's body, a woman can be a man trapped, but we inherently believe that black people are criminal. We can accept that you are a man trapped in a woman's body, but we don't, for some reason, we can't buy the notion that all black people aren't inherently criminal. And that's, it really, and that we don't, like for every time something happens, they'll say, these dualities can't exist. You can't tell us we live in a country where you're innocent until proven guilty, but then okay you being murdered because he said you were guilty, the cop said you were guilty. They didn't try you. Before they tried you. Right. And the truth of the matter, America's never, there have been 200 race riots in America, primarily because black people or people of color have been killed by the police, but nobody be brought to account. That was before there was black on black crime. So what was it then? We've been murdered for reading, for looking somebody in the eye, for whistling at somebody. The murder of black people at the hands of people of authority has always happened. And police are doing what they've always done, which is the police for us have never been about protecting and serving. It's keeping you in your community where you belong and keeping you out of places you don't. That's just how it's.
You know, there are some good officers out there, a lot.
Nobody needs to say that because we already know.
We know that.
But let me make this distinction. The same officers that patrol communities of wealth aren't the same ones that control communities of color. Okay. They're not the same officers.
That is true. That is true.
So why don't we look at a couple of examples that are not my imagination, that just happened. Examples that are not cherry-picked, examples that illustrate this ridiculous level of black on white crime, black on Asian, black on old, and violence wildly out of proportion. And why don't we start with a real nasty one here with this young Asian lady.
Chauncey, that victim, Abby, was just released from the hospital yesterday. She spent a week and a half in the hospital. Now take a look. Here is a picture of her. You can see some of her injuries. She was body slammed by 2 men against a brick wall. She had 3 fractures to her pelvis and a large gash on her head. And police just released a sketch of one of the 2 suspects involved. He's described as a black man in his 20s, about 6 feet tall. Abby said that she arranged for them to meet in a public place, the lobby of an apartment complex, on a Sunday afternoon. Her 11-year-old son was with her. There were cameras in the lobby and 2 staff members inside of the building. Abby said the men wanted to see the iPad that she was selling, so she showed it to them, and that's when one of them grabbed it and ran off. She grabbed him from the back, and that's when she ended up sandwiched between them.
Able to grab him from the back And then he kind of pulled back, and I gave him the chokehold. You know, I was choking him, I was punching him and everything. I put for a fight. You know, I just kind of like, to me, I was like, okay, now I'm protecting my son and me, myself.
And that struggle continued outside of the building, where Abby says that she was then slammed into that brick wall and she blacked out for about 40 seconds. She says she is just grateful she is alive.
That just happened. I mean, that just happened. So did this. Little 13-year-old white girls walking through one of the, I'm using air quotes here, safer neighborhoods of Philadelphia where this stuff doesn't happen, Colin. 13-year-old white girls walking through a neighborhood of Philadelphia when she came upon her parents' worst nightmare, because at that point, I'm sure she didn't even know what her worst nightmare was.
Tonight at 11, a Philadelphia neighborhood on high alert. Police are searching for the man in the sketch you see over my shoulder here. They say this man sexually assaulted a 13-year-old girl near a popular train stop, and they need your help to find him. NBC 10's Brandon Hudson is live at SVU headquarters in Hunting Park. Brandon, this has neighbors on edge tonight.
That's right, it does, Keith. Investigators say this 17-year-old is dangerous, and they don't want anyone to approach him. His teenage victim was walking home from school when she was grabbed and sexually assaulted. Philadelphia police hope this sketch can get a 17-year-old suspected of sexual assault off the streets. Investigators say 2 weeks ago the attacker grabbed a 13-year-old girl from behind. He said to her, quote, "If you scream, I'll kill you." Then he pulled the young girl to this fenced-in area near homes on the 13,000 block of Cardella Place in Somerton. That's where police say he sexually assaulted her in the middle of the day.
I got a little sister, I got an 8-year-old niece, so that makes me think, you know, what if something like that happens to one of my family members?
And police say the suspect has a distinct feature. Get a good look at his crooked nose. Detectives say he confronted his young victim on this popular dirt path near a SEPTA train stop.
Everybody getting off the train takes that little path.
Mark Monticelli didn't recognize the guy in the sketch, but vows to be more vigilant for the girls in his family. At least 2/3 of sex assault victims are between the ages of 12 and 17. 82% of all juvenile victims are girls. Staggering numbers that will put people in the quietest neighborhoods on alert.
It's extremely disheartening, it's sick, and it's sad, and I hope to God that one day she'll be okay, because it's something that no child should ever have to go through.
And here's the thing, not only does this victim have to deal with physical pain, but emotional pain too. In addition to the suspect's crooked nose, police say he's 6 foot tall, weighs no more than 165 pounds, and wore a black shirt with orange writing on the front.
This came from one of our viewers and readers about an area I'm very familiar with called Oxford, right up the road from good old Wilmington, Delaware. And he said, Colin, this never used to happen in Oxford. And I've been to Oxford many times. It's one of these, it's amazing how you cross the state line into Pennsylvania and everything changes. Everything's bucolic, everything's old, everything's, there are lots of barns and farms and tiny little towns with, you know, cool little drugstores and coffee shops. So that's why this guy, this white guy, was living in that part of Chester County called Oxford. Earlier this year, he just ran into a fella, carjacked him. That father of 2 is now dead. There's the victim, there's the perp. You know, earlier this summer, just a couple weeks ago, I forget what I was watching on HBO, but I let the TV run, and I saw LeBron James was now having his own TV show. I think it's called, like, In the Barbershop or something. So I listened to it, and I was just astonished. And, there were like 5 people, 5 black guys on the show, and Jon Stewart, the guy who used to be the Daily Show comedian. So the show started with everybody, you know, in a LeBron in a barber chair, everybody else pretending they were sitting there waiting for a little trim. And it started, you know, right out of the gate. It was LeBron explaining why he didn't like white people. Just didn't like them. He goes to an all-white Catholic school. I think it's in Akron. He said, no, I didn't like the kids there either. Didn't like them. Why didn't you like them? Well, I just learned I learned they were racist and they oppressed black people. Where'd you learn that? Well, I must have learned it at home. Well, if you were getting such a damn good education at your home, why did you feel you needed to go to that Catholic school? Why didn't you just go to a public school where you could get the real story? Anyway, everybody in the room took a turn, reminding everybody how much white people suck. And everybody's attitude was like, man, this is 2018. Why do I even have to explain this anymore? Because it's so self-evident that black people are relentless victims of relentless white racism all the time, everywhere. That explains everything. I mean, is there anybody on this planet who doesn't know that? The only guy missing was D.L. Hughley. So not only are we getting this enormous level of black-on-white crime and violence, we're getting district attorneys much more reluctant to prosecute it because we're not going to arrest our way out of this mess. We get people in the legacy media who are much more eager to just talk about it as if it's a fact when the opposite is true. And every day, that's what we see in newspapers, TVs, radios, newspapers. Nobody's connecting the dots. People are afraid to connect the dots. We connect the dots here, even if that means we get kicked off of YouTube and Facebook and other places. I don't know. I might be kicked off Minds right now. I don't even know where you're going to see this video. But we're going to keep going. It's too important. There are too many people watching these videos saying, Colin, this isn't just about the media screwing up the planet. This is about keeping my mom and dad and aunt, uncle, sister, brother, next door neighbor safe from nightmares they have not even begun to imagine yet. And no, they tell me, I'm not going to say that in public because I just don't want to get the black kids angry.